Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called Even If the Villain's Daughter Regresses. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! It's a bloody evening full of screaming, and our 20-year-old female lead, Lila Hildegard, knows she's next. So she prepares the return stone as a handsome blonde knight stained with blood walks into her room. She does everything possible to convince him not to harm her, pointing out that his enemy, her family, is someone she despises as well. But he ominously replies that if she can't rid herself of her Hildegard blood, then there's no hope for her. She asks him one more question. If she tried to stop the arson and his murder 10 years ago, would he spare her now? If she means she tried but still couldn't stop it, his response is a solid no. Lila gives up and bravely raises her middle finger at him, expressing her disgust at meeting him and hoping to never see him again. After that, she swallows the return stone and passes away. The attitude, the drama! Prepare your snacks, everyone! Lila is the daughter of a ruthless villain, Marquis Hildegard, and everything started when she was 10 years old, when her father brought in that blonde kid as a slave. She was attracted to the kid's looks, so she went to the dungeon where he was imprisoned. But when she heard the screams and smelled the blood, she chose to run away. Soon after, she learned that the child passed away, and 8 years later, the news of a hero born to seal the demon shocked the globe. The kid and the hero looked basically identical, but no one was buying Lila's story. Fast forward 2 years, and that same hero who had just sealed the demon showed up at the Hildegard mansion and went on a total killing spree for revenge. Lila successfully returned 10 years back after stealing the return stone from her father. In her second life, she instantly packs up and leaves the Hildegard family. But, oh, my poor child was murdered by the coachman after stealing her money. Realizing the dangers of leaving home as a kid, she waited until she was 16 to go to a distant kingdom across the sea. But she failed as the hero chased her all the way. She chose marriage for her fourth life since it would allow her to abandon her name, Hildegard. But it was still pointless because the hero decided to end her life. Lila is totally over this whole regression thing and trying to dodge the psycho. So she snapped at her dad for being so evil, taking lives and treating people like trash. She started breaking down, asking in desperation how to drain her Hildegard blood. This led to her being sent to the southern villa, where she waited for the hero to arrive after 10 long years. And he eventually did, bringing her life to an end. This guy's dedication is next level! We finally caught up to the present, and for her 6th life, our dear Lila totally loses it, which honestly would be me if I were in her shoes. Still, she attempts to collect herself and puts down her situation. First, she can return several times. The question is, how many times? That said, she has opted to avoid unnecessary deaths. Second, the point she regresses to is fixed. May 11th, when she is 10 years old and in her bedroom. This brings us to the third point. She will never be able to avoid the arson incident in which her father burned down an orphanage where the blonde kid lived. Fourth, she can't recall the exact moment she died, which is a good thing because if she had to relive that, she would have lost it ages ago. Everyone comes together, and Lila appears to have a bunch of half-siblings, yet she has never considered anyone to be family. Their father has arrived with a child, which always makes our girl shudder in terror. But this time she tries to be more friendly. However, the child just slaps away her helping hand, prompting her father to order the child's beating while glaring at Lila. Her father is someone who will not hesitate to order the death of his children, and she is fully aware that her father can kill her at any time with a single word. So when her father asks what they should do with the boy, she trembles and has no choice but to respond that he should be severely punished because that is the Hildegard way. That evening, Lila heads to the dungeon, and with her adorable charm, the guard lets her into the kid's prison cell. She spots the kid out cold, so she starts applying some medicine on his back, chews up the herb before slipping it in his mouth, and thinks about leaving when out of nowhere, the kid grabs her leg. Lila sees the adult version while looking at the kid, causing her legs to weaken, and she begins crying, screaming that he let her free. The sight startles the kid, and as soon as he releases his hold, she runs away. She may not remember her exact death, but the trauma is definitely lingering. Lila wakes up the next morning, motivated to survive, and because her father has begun to ignore the child, she is free to visit him in prison and provide him with food and medicine. However, instead of becoming closer to him, he begins to detest her even more, which confuses her, and she begins to imagine a future where she might once again meet a tragic end at his hands. Today, while eating, their father announces that he will go on a hunt, which excites everyone and reminds our girl that today is actually the day that Blondie will die. With a playful smirk, she hurries over to Wilhelm, asking him to steal a bracelet from her father. She adds a little nudge, saying that if he doesn't, she'll have to tell her father about the money he embezzled, leaving him with no choice but to comply. After that, Lila quietly hops into a carriage heading to the hunting ground, and inside she finds the sleeping Blondie as well. She knows that the child will say bye-bye after being struck by an arrow, but with her bracelet, she feels hopeful that she can save him. She trails behind the servant as he guides the kid deep into the forest. Once the servant leaves him all alone, he glances back and knows that she's been following him all along. He angrily asks her to leave, making her wonder why he hates her so much. The kid then suggests that she should stop what she's doing, as it won't make a difference. Out of nowhere, the bracelet begins to vibrate, signaling her to quickly shield the boy and take the arrow herself. She believes she succeeded, but the girl ends up dying and is now on her 7th life. Wilhelm is meant to give her the signal with the bracelet, and in her mind, she feels strong enough to protect Blondie with all that, "You're safe with me, baby boy," which will open his heart to her and not kill her in 10 years. I can't decide if I should be cracking up or feeling sorry for her. Anyway, she has no time for that right now, so she rushes outside despite her dizziness in order to be on time when her father arrives with the boy. To her surprise, her father begins laughing, applauding her for her resilience for coming down to see him despite her severe nosebleed. The Marquis admires Lila's determination, so he grants her one wish, which she plans to use later. She then returns to her room to look at herself, puzzled why she's so pale and has a nosebleed. Is this a side effect of regression? Her personal maid, Marie, prepares a tea that can restore her stamina, and despite its horrible taste, our little girl chugs it all at once. Marie is a really kind person, so Lila promises that if she ever makes a mistake, she will forgive her, and she even persuades her to commit a large mistake. The truth is that Marie will steal all of the jewels in her bedroom and escape next year, so Lila hopes she will also take those from her dressing room. A week has gone, and it is time for another hunting session. This time, Lila sneaks closer and overhears the servant warning the child not to run because dozens of arrows are waiting for him. When the bracelet signal hits, she rushes to the boy. But to her surprise, he saves her, and they successfully avoid the arrow. However, when the kid is still hit, she realizes that her insane father intentionally orchestrated the hunt with the objective of executing him. She resolves to carry him and successfully exits the forest, where her father awaits. Before she faints, she makes a wish and pleads with her father to save the boy. That evening, right after she wakes up from fainting, she gets called by the Marquis and is asked why she ventured into the forest. Lila feels relieved because it shows that Wilhelm managed to hide the bracelet they stole. She responds honestly, saying she wanted to see the boy because she was really curious about him. This makes her father smirk evilly because he saw her hugging the boy in the forest, which basically means this crazy dad was watching the whole time and still decided to shoot those arrows. This sperm donor doesn't even care about his daughter. Lila decides to kneel and is ready to accept any punishment, but she kindly asks her father to give the boy to her in exchange for something she swears to do within the year. It's quite a lengthy discussion, and it seems the Marquis favors the deal, so he agrees. However, her punishment is still in place. After that, she heads to Blondie's room and hears him sleep-talking about his family, tears in his voice as he blames himself. After listening to everything the boy mumbles, Lila quickly realizes that he considers the orphanage his home and sees the people there as his family. She cannot imagine how he must feel about losing both his home and his family right before his eyes, but she tries to dismiss it, convinced that someone else is to blame, and that's her pure evil dad. The next day, in her room, Lila sobs, feeling sympathy for her enemy, which makes her think she might be fit to be a saint. After all, why would she feel bad for someone who would execute her? At that moment, Marie enters Lila's room and informs her that the boy is now awake, prompting Lila to pause briefly before deciding to see him, after which she dismisses Marie for the day. Lila is scared to see the boy, but here she is waving her hand as she greets the boy, but he doesn't respond. Frustrated, she becomes more persuasive, but he remains unresponsive. Changing her approach, Lila thanks him for saving her in the forest, which finally prompts the boy to look at her before telling her that it never happened. Lila tries to explain, but he still insists that he never protected her, causing her to smile warmly as she finally gets his attention and thanks him again, calling him her lifesaver, claiming that from that day on, he will get the treatment he deserves. Lila then cheerfully encourages him to get along from that moment onward, hoping that he will spare her life in the future, but he just gives her a cold stare. So she calmly sits on the bed, introduces herself, and asks for his name. But because he won't tell her, she will call him Cassian, the name of her bunny doll. This is actually his hero name, but to her horror, he stares at her like a devil out to murder her, making her extremely scared. This makes him irritably scratch his head before finally telling her that his name is Scion. Scion then agrees to let Lila call him by his name, causing her to grin before thanking him and swiftly excusing herself. After Lila leaves, Scion remembers Cassian and their first meeting at the orphanage. Cassian's initial question is about Scion's name, which stuns him since no one has ever asked before. After thinking for a while, he utters beggar, which shocks Cassian so much that it causes Scion to panic and rush to tell him all the names people call him on the streets, prompting Cassian to stop him. Cassian then explains that those aren't real names, leaving Scion to sadly realize that he doesn't have a name. Seeing his reaction, Cassian gently pats Scion's head and explains that he can choose his name later, just as he chose the name Cassian for himself. He then gazes at Scion intently and remarks that his golden hair shines beautifully. With a smile, he suggests the name Sunny, which catches Adele's attention as she enters the room. Adele gathers everyone and announces that Scion will be staying with them from that day forward. Everyone starts introducing themselves. Cassian is 14 years old, and their oldest brother, Adele, is the big sis. Then there's Ashili, Mike, Ray, and the youngest of the bunch is Cecile. They are such warm people, so it didn't take Scion long to think of them as his siblings. However, they feel that the name Sunny doesn't quite fit him. This prompts Cassian to ask Scion directly, and to their surprise, he smiles and expresses that he actually likes the name Sunny. Oh, he has such an adorable smile, and now it's gone. They live simply but happily, and after some time, they all gather again to discuss Sunny's name, and he announces that he's chosen Scion. For Scion, the orphanage felt like home. It was where he got his name and learned what family really meant. One day, Scion is pulled to the market by Cecile on her birthday because Cassian gave her money as a gift. Even though it was her birthday, this adorable girl's dream was to buy gifts for their parents, so they spent their time choosing and rushed home as the sun was setting. The two had fallen asleep in the carriage when Scion awoke to see a fire in the direction of the orphanage. He told Cecile a lie, claiming that they are preparing for her birthday so she should return home late before stepping out of the moving carriage and requesting the coachman to return to the market. When he arrived, the house was already engulfed in flames, but he boldly stepped inside, attempting to save everyone. However, his heart sank at the sight. Scion got on his knees and screamed his heart out before taking out the knights one by one, impressing Marquis Hildegard. The Marquis threatened him that he would send someone to the carriage and kill whoever was inside, prompting Scion to beg to leave it alone and promise to do whatever he asked. This caused the Marquis to crack a hideous smile, clearly enjoying the kid's situation, and he announced that he would prepare a grave for Scion. How can I enter a manhwa? I just need to slap this demented old man! It's no surprise this boy committed genocide! When Scion discovered that all of the arrows were aimed at him during the hunt, he understood he was in the grave the Marquis had prepared for him. This broken little boy is relieved that because he did what the Marquis ordered, Cecile will be safe. So when the arrow struck him, he smiled because it means he will see his family again. To his confusion, he woke up in an adult body, and the temple people praised and referred to him as the divine's descendant. He discovered that when a divine descendant is born, their powers do not activate until they reach the age of 18. Thus, if their body dies before then, the soul is preserved until they reach that age. Scion returned from the dead with hot abs, so he felt awkward about his toned body. The temple assisted Scion in his training, and 2 years later, as foretold, the evil demon appeared, and Scion embarked on a 15-day battle. So he basically has the mentality of a 12-year-old trapped in an 18-year-old body forced to be a hero. This seems totally unreal for a regular person, but Scion can actually heal himself as long as his heart and head are intact, though the pain still remains. Those marks on the back of his hand, they're like his respawn lives. He lost one, so now he's down to just 2 lives left. After sealing the demon and becoming the hero, Scion opted to go by his older brother Cassian's name. He was able to keep in touch with Cecile through letters and discovered that she had now become a countess. Before visiting Cecile, he went to their family grave and told them stories about how he became a hero before wiping out the entire Hildegard estate. His hatred makes sense now. For him, everything was as fresh as yesterday. No knights could stop Scion, and when he finally confronted Marquis Hildegard, he asked the very thing I wanted to know. Why did he set fire to the orphanage 10 years ago? The Marquis appears to have no reason and is just pure evil, as he can't even remember it. He simply stated that whatever it was not intentional, driving Scion to finish him while crying after realizing that his family's lives were worth nothing. He continues his massacre, and the last survivor he meets is Lila Hildegard. I love how we get to see both of their points of view. He wasn't expecting that Lila only gave him the middle finger before consuming a stone and collapsing. This made him uneasy, so he approached her and swung his sword. But to his surprise, he awoke in his 10-year-old body inside the carriage. He assumed it was a nightmare, so he slept. And yes, this is Lila's second life, in which she was killed by the coachman. So every time she regresses, he too returns to the past. Plot twist! In his third life, things played out similarly. He was struck by an arrow, became a hero, but then realized that the demon had no connection with him returning in the past, which led him to suspect Lila. So when Lila went far, far away, he tracked her down and assassinated her. However, it happened again. In his fourth life, he genuinely believed that Lila was sending him back to the past each time he killed her as a form of revenge. He thought that she wanted him to go through the pain of losing his family, getting shot by an arrow, and battling the evil demon repeatedly. Also, he would finally stop pursuing her, which he promised would never happen. Oh my goodness, the misunderstanding! He still slaughtered the entire Hildegard mansion and decided to pay Cecile a visit next, which relieved him because he was worried he was going nuts. However, Cecile became concerned due to stories about what happened to the Hildegard estate, causing Scion to clarify that it was the family that murdered their parents. To his surprise, Cecile was already aware of it, as she investigated the arson after becoming a countess, but she can't believe he murdered so many innocent people in his revenge. Scion's expression shifts and he becomes creepily serious, claiming that having the Marquis's blood and working for the Marquis are their crimes, leaving Cecile horrified. I'm totally on the sister side, but when I think about how Scion never really got to grow up mentally and emotionally, I feel sad. What a twisted life he has. Scion then gave her a smile that made Cecile really upset because he didn't seem to feel guilty for taking lives. Cecile can't help but say he's gone insane before quickly shutting her mouth, but Scion only grinned and agreed with her. That evening, he went to where Lila was staying because, as you all know, she married in her fourth life. However, it appears that it was not a happy marriage, as she was battered by her ugly and old husband. Scion took care of the husband, and seeing Lila with all her bruises filled him with anger, as it brought back memories of Cecile. Still, he made the choice to end her life, leaving our poor girl to sigh in defeat. Scion finished her off in his fifth life at the Southern Villa, believing she would give up on turning back time, but this never happened. In his sixth life, things took a different turn because Lila stepped in to protect him and ended up sacrificing herself. We're currently in the present, which happens to be our main lead's seventh life. After Lila protected him, Scion finally realized that Lila wasn't turning back time on her own. It was her death that kept bringing him back to the past. To look into this anomaly, he needs the temple along with his power, so he must avoid going back to the past. His current plan is to ensure Lila's safety, which is why he protected her from the arrows. From executing to protecting her. Finally, some progress. Scion is still recovering, but he can't relax since Lila is here, being the ball of sunshine that she is, which irritates him. He wonders why she keeps befriending someone who has killed her numerous times, but he decides to keep everything a secret, considering how she's so unpredictable. After greeting him, Lila quickly says her goodbye, but Scion can see that she's scared of him. It's so clear since she's trembling. He then goes to his drawer and holds on to the only thing he can keep, his mother's handkerchief. He mentally apologizes to his family because the family that murdered them keeps resurrecting, but he vows to figure out how to stop time from turning back so that after his revenge, he can meet with them again. This kid is all about getting revenge and not once thought about himself. Today, Lila receives the punishment for sneaking into the forest, a 90% reduction in allowance for 3 months. Second, she's not allowed to leave the estate for a month. Third, she's limited to 1 meal per day for a week, which she must share with Scion. She understands this is a test of her commitment to Scion, so she endures even though she can hardly walk, having given all her meals to him. She keeps telling herself that there are only 2 more days till the food punishment is over when she discovers a scrap of paper on the floor and takes it up, only to be surprised when Scion appears. He warns her not to open his first drawer, which she accepts and promptly leaves. 4 days ago, Lila decided to teach Scion how to read and write, but she wasn't expecting to find out that he actually knows how to do it. She decides to give him some paper and a pen to keep him busy, but after noticing those crumpled papers earlier, she feels a bit worried and chooses to take them away, fearing they might be filled with curses directed at her father. If this gets out, he'll face punishment, and all of her hard work will be wasted. But to her surprise, it turns out to be a sketch of a simple yet welcoming house. She feels relieved, but there's a hint of sadness too, as the drawing looks so cozy. It makes her think of a place where delicious soup is being served, which only makes her hunger grow. She feels a bit lightheaded when she notices that the bushes are bearing fruit, and since they grew in their garden, she thinks they must be safe to eat. She confidently takes a bite, but oh my, her luck is seriously not on her side as she just drops from the fruit's toxins. Scion hears Marie in a panic, begging with the family's doctor, Elvin, to save Lila, so he decides to see what's happening. Lila only ingested a mild poison, so she'll be fine after taking the herbs he prescribed. However, Elvin discovered a more serious health issue with our girl, and that's severe malnutrition. Scion finds out that Lila is only allowed 1 meal a day as a punishment, and since he's been chowing down all those meals for the past 5 days, he's totally baffled as to why she'd go to such extremes for him. She's just desperate to survive, that's why. He has pointed his sword towards her repeatedly, making her feel uneasy in the same room with him, yet she still treated his wound and offered him food. Scion takes a step back as Lila begins to mumble words, wondering if she might be dreaming because there's no way he could be in her room. Scion is just about to ring the bell to let everyone know that Lila is awake, but then he notices something. No one has come to see Lila, even though it's been a while since she collapsed. He's curious about why the Marquis, the Marchioness, and her many siblings aren't concerned about her, which brings to mind the words she said in their first life, that his enemy is her enemy. He realizes that she comes from a dysfunctional family, but even with that knowledge, he still feels he can't spare her life. Lila thinks she's in a nightmare after catching a glimpse of Scion's face, and she begins to chat with him, curious if he feels guilty for being the only one who survived. She then sits up and shares that she made a promise to her sister to live until she's 90. She shares that there was a day when everyone had to leave, and she even sensed that her sister might not return. She really wanted to go with her, but her sister asked her to stay. As a result, everyone passed away, leaving Lila as a sole survivor. However, she didn't blame herself, knowing that it was what her sister wished for. I'm really curious to learn more about her backstory. Lila understands that her sister loves her dearly, which is why she encouraged her to stay. What she wants to convey to Scion is that the incident was never his fault. One of them wants to live to fulfill a promise, while the other simply wishes to disappear and be with his family. After 2 days of being unconscious, Lila is finally back on her feet. When she finds out that Marie didn't bring Scion food while she was asleep, since he can just head to the dining hall if he wants, she quickly rushes to go see him. He appears thinner, which makes her wonder if she's simply forcing him to survive, but she keeps that thought to herself and just asks him if he wants to have breakfast, which he accepts. Lila chooses to seek Wilhelm's guidance on how to make someone desire to live, which causes this big guy to cry because he believes it is about her. She promptly denies this, claiming that there's just one person she knows who has lost someone they love, notably his family. When Wilhelm asks how recently this person lost his family, Lila realizes that, while it feels like forever to her since she continues regressing, it hasn't been a month for Scion. Wilhelm then concludes that the person might be experiencing a mental condition related to loss, which, in severe cases, can lead to a desire not to live. Wilhelm may not have the cure, but he confidently shares that he knows some methods to help ease the condition, which could support the person in moving forward from feeling like they don't want to live. Lila learns 3 simple actions to help her cope with emotional loss. taking regular walks, maintaining a balanced diet, and having consistent conversations. She can definitely do this, but the hardest part is convincing the grumpy boy. To her surprise, when she asks him to take a walk, eat together, or hang out in his room, Scion simply says yes. They've been at it for a week now, and it's clearly wearing our precious girl out. Look at those bags under her eyes, but she's still a cutie. Her everyday schedule isn't draining her. It's the fact that she needs to be with Scion all the time that suffocates her. Scion would typically sneer at her and tell her to leave, but what bothers her now is that he won't say anything, so she's not sure if he's becoming worse or better. Still, Lila is determined to heal the little psycho, so she starts practicing her smile when one of her brothers, Thomas, a boy with red hair and forehead curtains, appears to call her the disgrace of their family. Many on their estate begin picking fights with her, and she knows it's all because she captured their father's interest and was even granted a wish. Thomas mocks her for constantly hanging out with the mute slave and assumes she's bored, so he recommends something horrible because the boy cannot scream. However, Lila quickly cuts him off, stating that it is never boring with Scion because he has a nice face, then staring at Thomas with distaste and openly telling him how horribly boring he looks. Lila dips out, and honestly, the whole thing about Scion being mute isn't the worst, because goodness gracious, that kid can really talk trash. She thinks it is best to maintain the act of being mute, and to her surprise, Scion did not ask any questions and simply replied, yes. It's been a week, and Scion's arm is all healed up now, and since Lila is no longer grounded as well, she thinks it would be fun to celebrate with a picnic. They head to a lovely lakeside just an hour from home, and Lila is definitely enjoying herself. The knight guarding them, Sir Kessick, suggests they move a bit further where the view is even prettier. As they continue on, he suddenly remembers that he forgot the picnic item, so he heads back to the carriage. The picnic isn't just a treat for herself. It's actually part of Wilhelm's method to help Scion cope with his emotional loss by enjoying beautiful scenery. Lila asks Scion if he thinks the place is beautiful, and she feels a sense of relief when he says he doesn't dislike it, which is good enough for now. Out of the blue, she hears a sound in the forest, so she turns around and spots a wild wolf. She has never heard wolves at this lakeside, which makes her start to realize that their carriage isn't far away, but Sir Kessick hasn't returned yet. What's even more concerning is that she can't see their carriage either, which makes her begin to speculate if Thomas might have bribed the coachman and Sir Kessick. I used to think that Mop Boy was just a harmless bully, but it turns out he's even worse than I imagined. Lila starts trembling in fear, thinking she might not survive this and will have to start all over again. But there's no need to worry, dear. Scion is here to keep you safe. This boy confidently walks up to the wolf and with his bare hands gives it a few smacks, causing it to start retreating. Lila can hardly believe she's still alive, and what's even more surprising is that for the first time in all of her 7 lives, her murderer is asking her if she's all right. She feels a bit confused and decides to ask him if he's really asking her, but Scion just stays quiet, which makes things a little awkward. She decides to push her jelly legs to stand up and cheerfully tell him that she has no scratch at all, but then she gets taken aback, realizing that his wrist is broken. He advises her not to search for a branch or tear her dress to help with his injury, as their main focus should be on getting away from the lakeside. He mentions that if another wolf appears, he won't be able to fight anymore. They discover the carriage and spot the bald coachman and bobblehead Kessick just chit-chatting. They're quite surprised, and Kessick comes up with an excuse for not coming back soon. However, Lila refuses to spend her time questioning him because she has chosen to let her father enjoy what he loves most: punishing others. That night, she kneels before her father and asks him to punish those who attempted to murder her: Thomas and the people he bribed, Sir Kessick and the coachman. Lila is aware that Thomas and Kessick had a secret meeting, making it simple to uncover evidence. However, her current concern is whether her father will show any interest in her. To her surprise, the Marquis has ordered the names she mentioned to be summoned. It did not take long for their father to have the coachman and knight executed in front of Thomas and Lila. Crazy, but good job, I guess. Thomas tries to deny Lila's accusation, but he falls silent when their father brings up the discovery of a wolf-luring perfume in his room. Angela, Thomas's personal maid, steps in and asks the Marquis for permission to speak. How about you shut up? No, you may not say anything. For a lunatic, crazy Marquis, this old man allowed the maid to speak up, which is so disappointing. Angela denies that Thomas did not attempt to murder Lila, but she admits that Thomas despises her slave and ordered the two already gone men to cause him minor injury. She claims that this red devil is only 11 years old and is too young to plan such evil schemes against his sister. She and Thomas then bow down to beg the Marquis's mercy, which causes the old man to laugh and only punishes Thomas with 3 days in confinement. After that, the Marquis glares evilly at Thomas and orders him not to provoke any fights again, which terrifies Thomas so much that he agrees quickly. The punishment is light, but Lila appreciates their father's warning, which means Thomas will never be able to bully her again. Lila chooses to check on Scion, and noticing that he's already asleep, she grabs a chair to sit and watch over him. She felt a wave of relief when this 10-year-old kid stepped in to protect her from a wolf, and she couldn't help but picture the grown Scion who quickly pulled her out of her panic. She wonders if this reassurance is what people felt when Scion became a hero, and she envies it a bit because if only she weren't a Hildegard, maybe she could be one of those who admire him. She is so caught up in her thoughts until she hears him call her name for the first time. She then takes the chance to thank him for saving her, which he immediately denies, but she still feels glad because the fact that he fought the wolf shows that he wants to survive. Scion began changing after Lila immediately checked on him after being unconscious from ingesting a poisonous fruit. She guided him to the dining hall, and for a moment, he couldn't help but think that she should take care of herself first, which surprised him a bit. However, he can't help but notice her fragile neck and ankles, leading him to realize that this marks the beginning of a time when his mind and body may no longer align with his goals. See? He just needs a chance to grow and heal. On their first walk, he only agreed because he wanted to ensure she didn't eat any poisonous fruit again. He knows he's just creating an excuse, but he decides not to overthink it and simply goes along with whatever she wants without reacting, like a doll. He believes she will eventually quit befriending him and the Marquis will dispose of him as it should be, but he does not understand why he is anxious. He dislikes it when she looks at him nervously. He even asks if she got hurt rather than mocking her for being afraid of wolves, and now he can't take his gaze away from her smiling face. It's working! Lila's plan is finally working! Lila looks especially gorgeous today with all of the flower accessories in her hair, which are Marie's work of art. Lila catches Scion smiling, and when she asks him about it, his expression quickly shifts to a frown. Unfazed, she keeps asking, and eventually he admits that he was simply mocking her about her hair accessory. He then asks where she's going today, which makes her very happy because it's the first time he's asked, so she eagerly wonders whether there's a place he wants to see. The truth is, Scion only asks since she was all set to go out, but he chooses not to argue and simply agrees with her, claiming he wants to go to the flower shop. Actually, it's just her flower hair accessory that caught his attention, and oddly enough, he thinks it suits her. Looks like we know who'll fall first. After visiting the flower shop, they make their way to the library. She asks Scion if they can split up, as she wants to look for books about the return stone, but unfortunately, she doesn't find anything. Suddenly, a boy with black and red hair approaches her and says that her hair accessory is called Butterfly Dance. Lila stares at him suspiciously, prompting the kid to apologize. However, before they can continue chatting, a knight appears to fetch him. A prince, perhaps? After checking out the library, they go out to lunch, and Lila allows Sir Taylor, the knight who is guarding her, to join them. She describes the boy she met, and Taylor believes it is Kition Rasic, the second son of Count Rasic. Hearing the name reminds her of how famous Kition will become when he turns 19. In the future, it will be popular to bring sword slaves rather than knight escorts, so Count Rasic gave his son 10 each, and Kition handed them swords before slaying them with ease. As soon as they arrive home, the butler leads Lila to the drawing room, where a guest is eagerly waiting for her. To her surprise, the guest is Kition Rasic, which leaves her puzzled since the boy must have been really busy. The Rasic family stands out from the other counts because the king is deeply in love with the queen, who has just one relative, Count Rasic. So even the Hildegards cannot take them lightly. Kition introduces himself and goes straight to the point of asking Lila for her hand in marriage, which surprises her and makes her think that this kid has gone insane. Thankfully, he says he can wait for her response in 5 years because he's leaving to study overseas. And to her joy, she smiles and says yes, which makes this boy blush so much. He looks so innocent. The truth is, Kition searched for Lila to clear up any misunderstandings from their meeting at the library. However, the moment she walked into the drawing room, he fell in love with her and decided to make her his bride. Meanwhile, Lila believes Gideon is a great fit for a husband, but the slave massacre he committed is something she can't stand, and she believes she will never be able to live with someone like him. Our girl is totally surrounded by crazy guys! Today, Lila has decided to teach Sion something new, and she has chosen swordsmanship because she thinks he will enjoy it. Well, aside from the fact that it will eventually kill her. Anyway, she decides to dismiss the thought as she rushes straight to Sion to notify him, and to her surprise, he agrees. She then proceeds to seek her father's approval, which is strange. Is the world healing, or is this lunatic plotting something? Because he actually says yes without question. After that, she requests that Sir Taylor become Sion's instructor, and he agrees, which leads her to suspect that Mr. Cutie Knight here wants money in exchange. But he declines. Lila questions why Sir Taylor is willing to teach Sion, causing him to explain that he's simply intrigued because he senses something in the young child. Taylor is no ordinary knight. He was dubbed the Genius Rookie when he first joined the order, so Lila is overjoyed when he accepts her offer, prompting the knight to kneel and kiss the back of her hand. A cinnamon roll that could kill you? I'm taking this fine gentleman. They start with some intense training while our little bunny muffin happily watches from the corner. After the sparring session, Taylor asks Lila for a private chat, and they move to another room. She lights up with a grin and playfully suggests that maybe he's about to drop the news that Sion is actually a genius. Lila completely chokes on her tea when Taylor seriously confirms that she's right. Sion is truly a swordsmanship genius. Lila is curious about whether Sion is stronger than Taylor, but since Taylor's a grown man with a big physique, it's difficult to say for sure. Taylor is certain that Sion's understanding of the sword has already surpassed his own, which really surprises Lila, especially since it's coming from a genius like him. Taylor then jokingly says that there might be one explanation for this. Perhaps Sion was an exceptional swordsman in a past life and still holds on to those memories. Taylor is really a genius. Instead of laughing, this makes Lila feel anxious because, what if, right? She just brushes the idea aside, thinking that if it were true, Sion would undoubtedly resent her even more. Although Taylor no longer has anything to teach Sion, he still wants to give him advice on a regular basis. After all, Sion is his disciple, which makes Lila happy because Sion was only a slave to everyone a month ago. The truth is that she wants Sion to learn about the sword, not just so that he could be good at it, but also so that he could be recognized for his talent and treated better. Why? She convinces herself that her actions are for her own survival, believing that Sion will be grateful and will not kill her later. That same evening, Lila found herself regretting her decision and ended up crying in the garden. As soon as her father learned about Sion's sword skills, he expressed his desire to send him to the Roll Swordsmanship tournament, where matches can only end in death. Sion arrives and mentions that Marie has been searching for her. It's heartwarming to see how much this boy has changed, as he now asks Lila why she's outside in tears. She chooses to share the truth and finds herself in tears over the brutality of the tournament. But to her surprise, Sion gently wipes away her tears before playfully mushing her face. He then asks how he can avoid death, and when she tells him he has to win, he confidently declares he can do it. After that, he leads her to her bedroom and says goodnight, making her question if she's having a dream because Sion has changed so dramatically. We're still working with Sion's expressionless face, but I'm happy to see these babies will grow up well in this timeline. Today is the day of the trashy tournament, and since Taylor has chosen to ride in the carriage with them, Lila and Sion can't chat openly again because of Sion's little act of not speaking. Lila is already brainstorming ways to save Sion from the tournament, but she can't help but notice Taylor's shaking legs, clearly anxious about Sion's first tournament. That's it. I'm adding this adorable snugglebug to my boyfriend material list. When they arrive, before Sion walks to where the participants have gathered, he tells Lila not to do anything because he did not lie when he said he would win. After that, he goes inside, but his little act makes Lila blush and feel puzzled. The tournament begins, and the Marquis is truly evil for forcing a literal child to take on older men. However, Sion quickly defeats everyone, including a long-haired guy with a sword, a crazy-looking guy with a whip, and an assassin. And just like that, Sion wins the tournament, making the Marquis and the crowd grin in satisfaction, while Lila is confused. But seeing Sion smile at her and mouthing that he didn't lose makes her smile with relief. See that, guys? He can finally smile! Suddenly, the Marquis starts laughing out loud, making Lila want to slap him. Girl, same. Normally, the winner makes a request to their sponsor, but because Scion belongs to Lila, the Marquis permits her to make a wish, so she immediately chooses Scion as her escort. To her surprise, her father answers yes, which is weird, but again, Sir Taylor grabs her attention since this big guy is crying with joy. He's such a cutie. Today, Lila awakens from a nightmare about poisons and rushes to Scion's room, convinced that her father must have done something horrible. Her nightmare reminds her that sword slaves will become popular in the future because they give them poison that requires antidotes on a regular basis to prevent them from rebelling or escaping. She finds it strange that her father permitted Scion to become her bodyguard so easily, and she suspects that he must have given Scion the poison. However, when she questions Scion, he calmly states that he did not eat anything. She may have been fretting so much today that she doesn't realize she's so close to him, and Scion has been holding her hand, causing her to immediately move away and calm down. They go out today, and Scion looks especially charming in his escort uniform, making him look like a little knight. It's just the two of them, so Lila decides it's best if Scion escapes now, so she goes into a store alone. After some time, she exits the store, but the little buttercup is still there. She thinks she did not give him enough hints, so she walks to the library and says she will take a long time. But Scion is still waiting for her outside. Next, she goes dress shopping and says it will take a long time. But when she comes out, he is still there to tease her about her weird dress. Alright, so she heads to another store, but the sun is setting and this boy still hasn't left, which is making her feel pretty frustrated. The following day, they make their way to a forest that's far away from the Hildegard estate, a spot where anyone can disappear without a trace. Just the right place to escape. When Lila feels they've walked far enough, she tells Scion that she'll head back to the carriage for a bit, and this girl ends up dozing off with a little drool. When she wakes up, she feels sure that Scion has already run away, but oh my gosh, she gets totally jump scared because Scion has been staring at her from the window the whole time. That meme face is hilarious! The following day, they venture into another forest, but it brings back memories of the wolf for Lila, causing her to hold on to Scion tightly, which makes her mission to help him escape unsuccessful. They have been exploring various places for several days now, but Scion still hasn't run away, which is beginning to wear her out. So today, when they visit a beautiful field of flowers, she chooses to take a break and rest under a big tree. When she wakes up, Scion is still beside her, which prompts her to finally ask why he hasn't run away yet. This leads him to realize that this is the reason they've been spending so much time going out lately. He mentions that even though he wishes he could escape, he feels unable to do so. However, he doesn't mention that it's because of Cecile. Instead, he softly asks her to stop her plans and gently closes her eyes. Scion truly thinks he's lost his mind, and he realizes it all began when he discovered Lila in the garden crying. He decided to accept the change within himself, which ultimately caused him to miss the opportunity to die, something he had been longing for. He is aware that he will be breaking his promise to his family about ending all Hildegards in the world, as it seems Lila will be his exception. Today, while Scion and my boyfie, Sir Taylor, are practicing, an image of an adult Scion splattered with blood pops into Lila's mind, making her gasp for air. She chooses to head to her room first, but then she loses her balance. When Scion catches her, she pushes him away and ends up falling to the ground, leaving Scion looking quite confused. Oh my, just when things were going well, her mind has to bring up her trauma. Lila gulps down the disgusting but healthy tea Marie has prepared for her, and as she looks at the caring Marie, Lila can't help but wonder if Marie will be able to escape successfully the next year. Surely if her father catches her, he will not let her live. Marie has always been so kind, so Lila is starting to wonder if she ran away out of greed or out of desperation. With genuine curiosity, Lila asks Marie if something is bothering her, and she even starts to cry because Marie means so much to her. This heartfelt moment encourages Marie to share her feelings. Lila finds out that Marie has a younger sick sibling, and she hired someone to help care for him. However, the increasing expenses and medical bills are becoming overwhelming, which helps Lila understand why Marie stole her things. Lila wants Marie to bring her brother to the mansion so that Dr. Elvin can take care of him while she handles getting permission from her father. This means so much to Marie that she rushes to hug Lila, promising to serve her forever. Today, Lila chooses to visit a lovely flower field, and she even creates a beautiful flower crown for Scion. She then sits beside him and asks if he would like to share about his family. Scion remains quiet for a bit, leading Lila to wonder if it's too early to discuss family. Just as she considers shifting the topic, he unexpectedly starts opening up. He shares about his parents and his 6 siblings, with Cassian being the oldest among them. She finally figures out why he got so upset when she mentioned the name Cassian before, and now it's making her feel really bad. Scion keeps sharing his story about how Cassian dreamed of opening a vegetable soup shop, and everyone will have a good laugh since he can't even eat carrots. He pauses when he notices Lila is already crying while listening to him, but she quickly brushes it off, saying it's just pollen in her eyes. Then she asks if he likes carrots. When he mentions that he doesn't hate it, she promises to make a carrot pie just for him, and so Scion continues with his stories in a very calm voice, while she finds herself wiping her tears from time to time. Winter has arrived, and since it's that time of year, they spend most of their time indoors, so it's no surprise to run into her other siblings, Pablo and Henry. Lila playfully points out that Pablo's pants are on the verge of giving up, which makes Henry burst into laughter. This prompts the two boys to start hitting each other while Lila and Scion make their exit. Scion starts wondering if Lila isn't on good terms with her brothers, which she confirms, adding that no one in her family will cry if they learn of her death. She responds with a sad tone that she has no one, and she's worried that Scion will question more about her, something she's not ready to discuss yet. To her surprise, Scion simply replies he wants carrot pie, which makes her very happy because it means he likes the pie she made. Seeing her full of energy again makes this young boy smile. Today, Lila has been summoned by her father since it is now time to collect the payment in exchange for giving her Scion. Remember when she kneeled before him? Yes, she did promise to give him a prophecy. She made up a story about having a prophetic dream once a year that always comes true, but she never planned to tell anyone since she could get hurt if she did. But in exchange for Scion, she agreed to tell him. So, for her prophecy, she informs her father about Countess Coriona and her husband. Not long after, rumors about the current Count of Coriona, who allegedly rose to his position after poisoning the late Count and his wife, have made their way to the Hildegard estate. With everyone talking about the news, Lila's father summoned her right away, and she senses that he still has some doubts about her abilities and might be curious if she got the information from another source. One sign that he might still have some doubts about her is when he asks why she doesn't have any injuries, even though she says it's part of revealing her prophecy dream. This prompts her to clarify that the injuries occurred after the events in her dream took place in real life. After that, her father brings up her birthday card and with an ugly smirk says that he's happy to give her a birthday present, which she gladly accepts. Curious about why Sir Taylor is beaming today? Lila has picked him to be her escort for her week-long outing, as this is the birthday gift she requested from her father. They're off to the capital since our girl is super excited to visit the National Library. Since the three of them will be sticking together, Lila decides to tell Taylor the truth. Scion can speak, but must keep it a secret. When Scion calls Lila's name, Taylor is pleasantly surprised by how wonderful his voice sounds. He decides to use his puppy eyes to get Scion to say his name as well, which leads to a playful argument between them. Lila observes that Sir Taylor doesn't quite fit the typical knightly image, prompting him to share that he wields his sword to protect those who are weak. He then whispers to Lila that he has a feeling that Scion is destined for greatness in the future. Smart and kind. Just the way I like it. The National Library is so vast that it even has its own restaurant, and Lila wants to go there to look into the return stone. A little sprinkle of shiny jewelry on the librarian allows Lila to sneak into the off-limits archives. But despite all the books she reads for days, she can't find anything about the stone. She then tells Taylor that it's time to head home, which shocks this excited knight so much. He quickly grabs a bunch of books to borrow that will take at least a week to read, which means they need to stay in the capital. So Lila decides to make the most of her free time too. They are now at the restaurant, and when Lila orders a carrot pie, it makes Sir Taylor giggle because she really does look like a rabbit. So cute and gentle. This reminds Lila of her pet rabbit from before her regression, named Teresabeth, and she's not joking, causing Taylor to make fun of her and Scion to giggle. As the carrot pie is brought to the table, Lila's all curious, asking Scion if the restaurant's pie is better than hers. He just hands her a slice and she shyly accepts it from his fork. She mentions that the one she made is yummier, which brings a delightful smile to this charming little boy's face as he agrees. This makes her blush, while Sir Taylor sits on the sidelines, also blushing as he watches the ship sailing. Taylor cleverly reminds Lila that he is her closest knight, implying she should invite him next time, which leaves our girl really confused. "Babe, he's talking about your wedding!" After eating, Lila picks up one of Taylor's borrowed books to read and see if he really went through it. It's just a fantasy novel about a boy who explores a mountain called Gakpala Rock Mountain, where he saves a traveler with two different eye colors, one like the sea and the other like the sun. The traveler starts sharing his tales, and one of them is about his adventure in searching for a special object made by his ancestors, a small stone that has the power to reverse time. Absolutely, it's the book she's been searching for! Taylor is really a lucky charm! Lila keeps reading and discovers that the stone can absorb the energy from a person's body, and if swallowed before reaching 20, death will come your way. This revelation gives her goosebumps because, thank heavens, she was 20 when she took the stone. Otherwise, she might have turned into dust. Today, they head out to enjoy a play, and our trio is having a great time when suddenly, Lila hears the name Lady Donovan, which grabs her attention. The ladies in front of them are chatting about how impressive Lady Donovan is for investing in things that never fail, just like today's play. They plan to greet her, and Lila decides to join in and pull out her Hildegard card to say hello to Lady Donovan as well. The ladies gave Lila the chance to have a private meeting with Lady Donovan. And wow, she looks just like a beautiful ice queen! Lady Donovan is eager to hear what Lila has to say, urging our girl to tell a story about a lovely swan who was cared for by a human but eventually faced some mistreatment. The swan endured a lot, believing that the human would eventually show some kindness. Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse when the human cut the swan's belly. And no, we're not talking about the swan here. Lila begs Lady Donovan to consider divorcing the Count, because in the future, she'll be beaten to death. This was how Lila eventually became the next Countess Donovan in her fourth life. Over the next few days, the trio enjoyed watching every play in the capital, but Lila started to feel a bit bored, so she decided to buy all the circus tickets from a child. Out of pity, they decided to buy the tickets from the kid the following day, and then again the day after, which seemed a little odd, so they decided to just raid the place. The circus owner turned out to be involved in illegal human trafficking, which led to his imprisonment. Thankfully, they managed to send the abducted little girl to a safe orphanage. Look at these three doing side quests! After 7 days, it's finally time to head home, and Sir Taylor expresses his gratitude to Lila for allowing him to stay in the capital a bit longer. Just as they are about to leave, Lady Donovan arrives and asks to have a word with Lila. "I have a hunch Mommy will be an ally,"